So we're going to be using Lightroom Classic. I'm going to be looking at how to edit dramatic editorial fashion photos. So with this, it's fairly simple. I'm just going to boost up the lighting. As you can see, the raw was kind of a bit darker. So we're just going to lift the exposure there. And then I'm just going to bring up the highlights slightly, just to lighten that background a bit. And then bring up these shadows so we can see some of the garments. So like, because it's a black bit of clothing, it's a bit easier just to boost up the shadows a little bit. I'm just going to bring the whites down slightly and then lift the blacks again, just for the clothing, because it's dark. On dark it's a bit harder. What I want is I want to just kind of add a bluey steel tone to the background and the overall image. So I'm just going to drop the temperature slightly, and then I'm going to add a bit of texture just to kind of give that little bit of punch and a little bit of pop. Just going to bring the vibrancy up a little bit, just to kind of push the colour out in their faces. Just so it don't look so pale, just from where I've turned down the hues. So with fashion, you can't edit it too much because it'll impact the garment, and it needs to look as true as possible. So we're just going to look at the levels here. I'm just going to like adjust some of the highlights and lights again. I just want to make it as stand out as possible. And then I'm just going to bring down the shadows a tiny bit just to restore a little bit. So if you lift the black point, that's going to make it more grey in an image. And then I'm just going to adjust this so they don't look as red, so the skin tones don't look as red. So I just want to make it look a slight more bit like orangey yellow, just to be a more natural skin tone. And then I'm just going to boost that like hint of green and blue slightly. But yeah, as I was saying, with fashion, you can't edit the product too much. It's different if you're doing standard editorial and they're wearing the product, but for like e-commerce sort of photos, you have to keep the edit as true to the product as possible. So like here we've got a black tracksuit with black bottoms. So I'm just trying to keep that as true as possible. Obviously changing highlights, boosting shadows won't really impact that too much. Changing temperature could possibly impact that. By changing the temperature, you will add either a warmer or a cooler tone. So that could have impacts of like slight blues or yellows. I'm just correcting the lens. There's a bit of lens correction here, as you can see, before and with. So it's just slight warping from where the lens was on. And then I'm just going to go up to the masking. Just going to select the background because I just want that background to be a slightly more darker, just to give it that more dramatic effect. I wouldn't mind it a little bit bluer, so I'm just I've done the auto select. I don't mind it being on their shoes, that's not a bad thing. It's not the end of the world. But just filling in that little gap there with the brush tool. Doesn't have to be perfect this bit because it's more of just the background. And then we'll just go back to the edit panel. I'm just going to drop that temperature down slightly, just to add that bit of dramaticness. And just tone down that exposure slightly. And then there we go, we've got some nice heavy shadows, some gradient. It just really pops. And then once this is done, just where Trump stood at the back, he didn't have the best exposure of light. So we're just going to boost him slightly just so it kind of blends in a bit smoother, just so it doesn't look so dark. Perfect. So that was a slight one of just boosting some highlights on Trent's face using a round gradient. And that looks pretty much done. So we're just going to export this. Photoshop. So just going to select the polyboard and the light. As you can see, they're still in frame. Just going to use AI to remove those. AI is absolutely fantastic for this sort of stuff, extending images, stuff like that. There we go. And then merge them just because it's done now. They're out of shot, so we don't need that layer anymore. I just want to extend this rug. So the rug doesn't seem to sit straight. It seems to be slightly higher on the right hand side than the left. So I'm just going to use these guides just to map it out. So the model's a stud tool, but you can see the bottom of the H just isn't as low as the B. So I'm just going to use AI again. Use a pen tool just to click the rough shape that I want. Click in there and then just AI fill that. And then that's giving me a rough prompt. And then I'm just going to show you the options real quick. I preferred option 1, so I'm going to go with that. And then I'm just going to adjust it slightly and manipulate. I'm just going to extend that down just a tad. That looks perfect. Yeah, remove the guides because I don't need them anymore. And now what I want is I'm just going to remove a couple of little marks off the floor. I could do the entire floor, but in all fairness, it doesn't really need it. There's a little bit of texture on the floor, but not mass amounts. And then now what I want to do, I'm just going to use the white paintbrush tool. So I'm just going to go with a paintbrush on this. I'm just going to go around all the letters of the B for the branding, just to really give it that extra punch. So this again, it's just following the shape of the letter on the garment and just down, bring around. I'm just doing this with the tracking pad, just hand on it real quick. So once that's done, I'm just going to change the layer style. So at the moment you can see it's on normal. So if I just switch that to, if we go to like overlay or soft light, if we go to like soft light there, you can see a huge difference before and after. It just punches in that white a little bit just from where we dropped the highlights earlier on. Yes, I could boost them, but it would do it over the whole image. And I just want to bring out the branding on the logos, because I quite like the fact that everything else has kind of got that grey, like grey, blue, steely like look. And I just wanted to give it that restored white look for any logos. So we're just going to touch up the rug here with the brush tool. Just fill out all the letters real quick, and then we're just going to go back across the rest of the bees on the clothing. Just want to change brush size just to get these smaller little bits here. Again, this doesn't have to be the cleanest job. It's just to kind of bring out the white in the logos. Working in fashion can always be fun. Thank you to Blacksmith for giving me the opportunity. It's great fun. It's a great brand. Oh, turns out I missed the T. And then we're just going to go back through the rest of the garment bees and the logos. I did consider touching up the shoes, but I quite like that they're a bit more muted. So we just got this bit on the leg. It already makes a huge difference, just really stands out. Just adjusting that so it's a little bit shorter. So you can really see the side by side on it. It doesn't do much, but it does enough just to be able to give it that extra punch on the white. Little bit there. Perfect. Just this one. Although it's off to the side, it's still visible, so you may as well touch it up. Just look how much that enhances that with that little effect. Just really pops that brand in. And then we'll just do the same on the jackets. These are subtle little things that nobody ever really notices with photos, so this is stuff that takes the longest, just kind of doing these slight little retouches that make a big impact. Although it's very minor, it really does stand out in the end result. we're just going to remove this little red dot here. We're just going to remove that quickly. There we go, and that is the end result. So with and without the whites, you can see there it just really brings it out, especially in the matte. And now that's done, it's completed.